Good evening, and this is Myla Rayford, and you are listening to Myla Rayford's podcast, the Living Bipolar channel. I wanted to come back to you all this evening and share a little more of bipolar with you all. So, today's broadcast, we're going to be talking about a plethora of things. So, if you would just bear with me, get your pens and piece of paper out, or if you don't need that, just go ahead and grab your favorite drink and take a listen. Okay, so first I'd like to go on and get straight to it. We're going to be talking about bipolar and relationships. Now, it is very hard to maintain a relationship when you are bipolar because of the extreme mood swings. If you aren't in a relationship, most of the time people with bipolar feel clingy, they feel like they need the other person, and there are some people who just cannot handle that. So, with that being said, relationships are definitely very hard to maintain. Beyond the mood swings, the hypersexuality, and mind you, some of these topics will run into each other, and it's just so very hard to actually keep someone. The next topic I wanted to talk about was sex. Sex and someone who's bipolar. It depends on who you are and what your circumstance is, because for those of you who are bipolar and sex drives you into mania, sex isn't necessarily the thing for you. Now, if you're bipolar and sex doesn't do anything for you, that's not your thing, then hey, you're able to be in a committed relationship with somebody and possibly have sex. I know for me, myself, if sex is presented, it can create a state of mania for me where I'll be doing things that I regret and, going up and down with the way things are going and have little regard for anything. And I really, really, really cannot stand that. That is something that really just gets on my nerves. I don't know. I'm not really into not being able to control my impulses, and that's something that is very big in the bipolar community. Impulse control, it is very, very hard to actually control that. And speaking of impulse control, we want to actually move on to finances. Finances, most of us with bipolar cannot balance a checkbook, a savings account, anything. Because what we'll do is we'll end up draining our accounts because, again, of that impulse control. That's why I actually mentioned that earlier because it's so very true. And finances are a big thing in a relationship. You have one person that's able to manage your finances, and then you have another person that can't manage the finances. You would just automatically assume that the two people would be butting heads. So it's very interesting to actually see how a relationship with somebody with bipolar would play out. It would be me trying to necessarily see if there would be somebody that I would like to become serious with. And I know my disorder is not going to stop me from doing anything that I want to do, but it is a little harder to find someone in that respect. Partying, 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 partying. What more can I say about that? In a manic state, you're doing reckless things. You're doing too much partying. You're not necessarily doing a lot of partying, but you may be indulging in reckless behavior. And for me, that's something that is very prevalent with my disorder. I do tend to do reckless things. I do tend to not be able to focus or function. And I really just don't understand, that side of the disorder. It's like, okay, well, I do know it's genetic and it's hereditary, but at the same time, there has to be something that can be done, to calm all of that down. And yes, I know that there's medicine. I do take my medicine every day faithfully, which I definitely do appreciate that. But at the same time, I feel like there should be something else. Substance abuse is the next thing that I want to go ahead and talk about. And when it comes to substance abuse, it could be any type of substance, illicit drugs, marijuana, alcohol, take your pick. Cigarette smoking, it's all a drug. Except for marijuana, I'm not really too keen on it being a drug because to me it's not. But with that being said, I actually was a person who smoked marijuana. And I didn't smoke it because I like to smoke marijuana all day. I smoke it to level out my mood. With leveling out my mood, that would make me, better, happier, or what have you. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of people who go ahead and they abuse substances. They may abuse alcohol. There are a lot of people who really do abuse alcohol. And for me, that's not something that I do alone. I barely do it socially, but when I'm in a state of mania, I overdrink, I black out, I forget what I'm doing. I may be having sex with a whole bunch of people. And those are things that I actually can't stand that I do. And these are things that I can't remember either. And it's very interesting because not being able to do these things or not being able to remember these things, they're so hard. They are oh so hard to have to deal with that. And, again, I'm just giving you a glimpse into my life. And something else that I wanted to go ahead and talk about is blacking out. Blacking out is again another one of those things. It's one of those things where you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what's being said, you don't know what you did last night, and that's not something that's funny. I have instances where I have told people, hey, I don't remember what happened. And there are people that are like, oh, stop joking. You remember what happened. And I'm really and truly don't have any kind of idea what happened. I definitely blacked out. And now I want to go into abandonment, mental illness. People abandon you left and right. Your family abandons you. Your friends can definitely abandon you. Your own Facebook community, social media can abandon you because of the stigma, like I did talk about the last video of mental illness. Abandonment is something that is very scary. Being alone and not have anyone there for you, that's something that really hurts and it takes a toll. It really, 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 really takes a toll on you to not have anybody there for you. People who can't sympathize, who think that you're really making an excuse of the disease. And that is the thing. I'm not understanding why people think you're making an excuse about something that you can't help, that you were diagnosed with. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. If it made sense to me, then, I would have just a tad bit more understanding. And I definitely understand in a sense, but then in a sense, I can't understand. And stealing. Well, a lot of us bipolar people have bouts with stealing. I have stolen money from family members, and I'm quite honest with everything that I've done. I have borrowed money from friends and never paid them back. And this is when I was in a state of mania again, with that whole recklessness, with no regard, no remorse, no anything. And there are people who still haven't forgiven me to this day, but there's not really much that I can actually do about that. I do feel like if you're going to accept me, accept me. If not, do not. And there would be no point for us to even be friends if you can accept, hey, I wasn't in my right state of mind when we were doing this. Everything was wrong. Please forgive me. But at the same time, you may not have the chance to make things right. And there are some things that you do just have to put closure to and just pray that those people do actually forgive you. Now, something that can be very prevalent with bipolar disorder as well is leaving jobs for no reason. Just up and quitting your job, which is very reckless. I've done it. I've actually done it a few times where I've just up and left, didn't really care, just left the job just because I could and did. So I did. And it's really interesting when you do that because nobody should up and leave a job for no reason, but the psychosis is there's not going to be any consequence, so you're just going to leave your job. And then about the time that you really do figure out, hey, you've walked off of a job, it's just a little bit too late. And now you don't have a job. And that is the reason why, you know, having little or no regard for things in a state of mania is just so scary because you could end up in a very dangerous situation. And I know if it wasn't by the grace of God that I am still standing because I have been in so many reckless situations where I just wish that they never would have happened. I wish that I could have gotten out of them. I wish I was never put in the situation. But again, God has you everywhere He needs you for a reason, and I definitely do believe that wholeheartedly. And now the insane ups and downs, the insane mood swings. That definitely goes back to saying relationships where you're high 1 minute, low the minute. It also goes into extreme depression and extreme mania. Extreme depression gets to the point to where you feel like you don't matter and you want to commit suicide. That's why on my full length mirror, I have mantras. I have I matter, you are loved, you are worth it, be encouraged, you are strong, bipolar does not define me, and your dark skin is beautiful. I am an African American woman of a chocolate brown complexion. No, I'm not the darkest woman on the spectrum of color, but I do consider myself a beautiful chocolate woman, and that is how I feel, and I won't let anyone take that away from me. And like I was saying with the extreme depression, like I said, that will lead to suicide. And it's really just a shame that that can actually lead to suicide. And I just wish that, there was more awareness because there are plenty of people who have died from being bipolar and nobody actually really knew the signs of being bipolar. But the mania is also something that's very interesting as well. There could be slurred speech, agitation, very much so. Agitation, and like I said, little or reckless, no regard. So I just wanted to leave you all with that today. And that will be all for this podcast. And I will go ahead and talk to you all later. Bye bye.